Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing the 912 support tier list. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton with visibility on the channel. You can always find timestamps in the description if you don't have time to watch the whole video, and I also have a link to the Google Doc in the description as well if you want to watch that. As you can see, I'm trying out a new format here. I am going to do some video editing, maybe the next tier list and patch note cycle, but this time what I want to do is just add in kind of almost like a split screen here where I have the tier list on the left so you can really easily just kind of see where we are on the tier list. I still have the Google Docs link there that we're going to go through, and then I have some notes for each champion over here on the right just to keep us on point. I would like to talk about each of the top 10 champions for about 3 minutes, aim for 30 minutes on this. Unlikely that's going to happen, but we're going to try to shorten it down at least below an hour so we can try to draw in some new viewers that might be scared of those longer videos. So I'm just going to reference guides if I do have guides for the champion so that you can learn a lot more about very specific itemization in certain situations and how certain skills work and things like that. So we'll talk about that some, but I'm not going to go over entirely how Yuumi works or how Nami works or how Sona works in this video just to save on time because I feel like I do that like every tier list. So I'm just going to reference you to the guide if you want to know more. Then you're welcome to check out that guide or stop by the stream sometime around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Usually go till about 2 a.m. and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can always go back and find old streams as well, and I'll have timestamps in the description for the champion that I played and the time that I played that game, and I'll also have been putting that in the comment section as well. So if you want to see a Yuumi game in action with some commentary, just go back, check out some of the old streams, look into the timestamps, and you'll see Yuumi there. You can even type Yuumi in the search bar to the channel. Let me just pull that up really quick. Something like this. Didn't have that prepped, but I'll just show you here. Why not? Because it does have this nice little search bar feature up here. So if we go to... I'd have to full screen it here. Does it not have the search? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it just looks a little weird there. So if we just go like Yuumi, for example, you can type search on that. It'll take you to the guide. Then you can also see here's one from like, 6'1", 531, 6'10". All of these are going to have Yuumi because it's in the description. So if you want to see it, you just click on like a 6'10" one that was just from a couple of nights ago. You can just scroll down. Boom. We've got a Yuumi game at 46 minutes, 1 hour, 51 minutes. Those are the two Yuumi games of the night. You just click on it. It'll take you right to that game. So we've got you hooked up. If you want to see a bunch of gameplay, there you go. If you don't have time to watch the whole stream. Okay, hopefully we can fix this a little bit. There you go. All right, but let's go ahead and jump in here. Now, I just wanted to talk real quickly about the patch notes and how they might impact what's going on here. The top 10, by the way, are going to be Yuumi, Nami, Sona, Zyra, Rakan, and then Nautilus, Lux, Janna, Pyke, Soraka, and then finally Lulu, Karma, Fiddlesticks, Thresh, and Morgana. So it's just kind of a preview of where we're going with those. And we have in-depth, like little mini Google Docs as well. So if you click on this, it'll tell you, or it'll give you a link to the wiki so you can learn more about the abilities, a 1 to 5 rating system, recommended runes, recommended items. And this 1 to 5 system is just how well does a champion perform at that task relative to other supports. So lane pressure, how well is the champion, like get priority in the lane, poke out the enemy, kill threat, how likely is the champion able to get kills or force kills. Safety, how safe is the champion, particularly from ganks early on. Scaling, how well does the champion perform over time. And then reliability is how likely is it that someone can play the champion at a high level with a moderate amount of practice consistently over many games. So part of that is how difficult is the champion to play in terms of mechanics and decision making, but also how well does the champion fit into the meta, how many different counters are there out there for that champion. So you can still find those for each one of the champions, and we're going to be going over as we go through. Okay, so as far as the patch notes go, a lot of this was for pro play, so there's not going to be a ton that impacts solo queue, but there are a couple. So first of all, Yuumi is getting a couple of nerfs. So number one, she is having her health increased to 480, which is a buff, but it's also a nerf, because we'll talk about the runes on Yuumi here in just a second. But people have been taking cut down on her, and part of the reason that cut down is so strong is that she has really low base health, so that ends up giving her a lot of extra damage in the laning phase. Off of cut down, about 10% extra damage in the laning phase, and she doesn't need all that health most of the time anyways because she's going to be untargetable for most of the laning phase unless she's jumping off to do a bop and block. So this looks like a buff, and it kind of is, but it's also a nerf to a very popular build on her with that cut down. Now, passive, the mana refund is going down to 30 mana versus 40 mana early on, and then the shield is the same early but doesn't scale as much late. So, you're going to be losing maybe I don't know, 5 to 10 shield off of this by like level 5 or so, kind of later in the laning phase. So I think it's still going to be really strong. It's still a very good shield, and 30 mana regen every 20 seconds potentially, even 30 every 30 if you trigger this, once per minion wave is still a lot. That's still going to be 12 mana per 5, and that still, almost doubles the mana regen of most other enchanters out there. So still going to be really strong. Prowling projectile, I don't know. I guess there was some bug with that. I didn't see that too often. You and me, now they're nerfing the adaptive force that you share, but that's not a problem because you never level this up. Like, the only time you start leveling up W, I think, is when you're like level 14 and higher. And most games are over before then. So it really is not going to matter that much because you never max this first. You always max Q, then E. So that just shouldn't matter. Now, this one does matter. If you get CC'd by anything, then it will stop your dash onto people. Because right on 9/11, then you could soak stuns for people. You could soak binds for people. Now, this took some kind of high-end Yuumi play, but like you could take an Ash arrow, and if you're in transit, you just wait till the arrow's about to hit you, and then you W to somebody. It'll still stun you, but you'll move over, and you'll be attached to people. So you still can go untargetable. The only thing that stopped you from actually moving over to other people were knock-ups or knockbacks, so just like displacements. But stuns didn't stop you. Roots and snares didn't stop you. As long as you were in the motion of Wing to someone, it wouldn't stop you. So they're changing that. Now you can get hit by a lot of stuff. This is really dangerous, especially in team fights, because if you try to like jump from one person to the next, for example, and you get hit by like an Amumu ult or just like some kind of random CC, like a Sejuani ult, or you get stunned by like Kennen, stunning or whatever, then you're going to be knocked out of your W, especially in the early game, because your W has a pretty long cooldown early. So if you jump off to go bop and block, and then the Leona attaches to you, or something like that, then you're going to be in big trouble because you're not going to be able to reattach for like 7 or 8 seconds, and you don't have flash. So that's actually a pretty big nerf. You want to be careful with that one. However, this is a pretty nice buff here. You won't detach unintentionally when you're trying to switch from one person to the next if they move out of range. So that's going to help out a lot with that kind of frustration. And then just some visual stuff to help you see who you're attached to. It's going to have a nice ring around it. I haven't seen what that is yet, but they're trying to visually help you track where Yuumi is, which is really good in team fights because sometimes you try to jump over to people and they like jump out of your range and you don't actually move. And then, sometimes you try to jump from one person, then you try to jump to the next person really quickly. And you can't do that because there's like a half a second cooldown between your jumps. So this just helps you out, just kind of lets you keep track of where you are, because it can get very, very easy to get lost in the shuffle. And to even tell if you're attached to somebody or not sometimes. So I think that's going to help out a lot visually with Yuumi. So that's really handy. Karma, we'll talk about her later. I don't think this is probably going to be enough to bring her back. The extra slow is nice. That will allow you to kite a little bit better. Movement speed is very good. I mean, 2.5 seconds is very strong. It's just her numbers are still pretty low. Like her shield's only 170, which compared to like Janna is 220. Lulu's 220 now. Yuumi is potentially burst healing for north of 280 off of her W charges. It just feels still a little lackluster. But she does have really good poke in lane, which once again we'll talk about when we get to her down to tier 3. But she's definitely going to move up a little bit. It's just I'm not sure. She might get to 50%, but I don't think she's going to be up in the same kind of percentage range as most of the other enchanters. And then Lulu is getting some light buffs. 10 extra shield later on, even early on, is nice. And then the mana cost going from 100 to 80 is actually quite good. This might bring back the shield max Lulu, because now you can spam this in the lane to harass a lot more, so that's really handy. Now, I'm not sure what these other cleanup effects are. If this is just like visually stuff is more clear, or if there were actual bugs here that they're trying to clean up. So Lulu's kind of weird. I mean, she can be really strong. If you're going to play her, I would play her with someone who scales really well with attack speed. A lot of those types of champs have been nerfed. A lot of the Ginsu users, your Varus, your Vayne, that type of thing, your Kog'Maws. But she is still really good with champions like Jinx, who want a lot of movement speed and attack speed. And even Sivir, like, it's okay on champions like that. So she's pretty good. She's got some nice protection against assassins. So she's all right. We'll talk about Lulu a little bit more later, but those are the changes to support. And then Nautilus got 20 damage off of his Q. So this is going to hurt his all-in, like maybe level 2 or level 3. If you try to all-in, you are going to have a little bit less burst, but I still think he's going to be a pretty strong champion. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as the patch notes. Let's go ahead and get into the support tier list here. All right, so I think that Yuumi is number 1 right now, and this is going to sound like a little weird because she does have, I think, a 43% win rate overall. If we scroll down here, she's pretty close to the bottom. Or not 43, but like a 47% win rate. But there have been really powerful supports as well that have hovered down here, particularly in pro play, like Braum, Alistar from time to time. I mean, Pyke's only 50%, and a lot of tier lists will have him as like the number 1 supporter, at least tier 1 or tier 2 support. She's just hard to play, and a lot of hard to play champs are just going to be lower down the tier list until you get a lot of practice on them. Because especially someone who's as popular as Yuumi, like Yuumi's being picked 17% of the time and banned 41% of the time. And so a ton of people are playing her that don't know how to play her. So that is dragging down her win rate overall. But there's a few things that are making Yuumi particularly strong right now. So number 1 is her trading in lane is actually really strong. And that's kind of anti the meme that we're used to seeing with Yuumi, right? Where when she first came out, everyone was saying, oh, she's just kind of this e-girl champ that just kind of AFKs on somebody and is just kind of there to look cute and get carried and doesn't do anything active. Well, that's really not true at all. If you start looking at Yuumi, her trading potential is massive. If you start looking at her numbers, and a lot of it has to do with her passive. So her bop and block shields for 80 early on. That's basically an 80 heal that you can also put on your 80 carry because the shield never falls off. It always applies. It never gets, it never just runs out. And so you can auto attack somebody and get an 80 shield. You can do this every 20 seconds. So that means effectively you gain up to 240 health per minute. Now you're not going to trigger it on 20 seconds every single time, but you're going to get at least effectively probably like 200 health, like 2.5 triggers, you know, every minute or so. That gives you like 5 seconds window where you're not triggering this while you're waiting on the minions or whatever. But you should be able to trigger this pretty often. That's a hell of a lot, right? So it's like, yeah, she only starts off with whatever, 480 health. But if you think about it in that sense, she's getting an extra 80 health per minute, or 80 that's triggering a lot, like 200 health per minute, right? That's a lot. Like after 2 minutes, she has an extra 200 health effectively. So it's just an insane amount of sustain. You can also put it on your 80 carry, and it gives you a ton of mana. So it gives you 30 mana every time you proc this. So if you proc this, once again, like even twice per minute, that's 60 mana per minute, which is 12 mana per 5. Or 5 mana per, 12 mana per 5. I think, right? 12, no. I'm blanking out on the on the numbers there. But it's a lot. It's 60, so it's like 5 per 5. 5 mana per 5. There we go. So it's 1 mana per second. Math is hard sometimes. But yeah, so it's just a ton of regen. So basically what this breaks down to is roughly like 2 fairy charms and 2 reju beads early on. You know, you might get a little bit less, a little bit more depending on how you proc it, but that's a lot of gold to come to lane with. I mean, 2 reju beads are about 300 gold and 2 fairy charms are 250. So you're getting about 550 gold worth of value there in the early game. And then her Q is extremely accurate. Once you get good on this, it is very, very hard to dodge this. Like, you have to hide in the minion wave and really put yourself pretty far out of position in order to try to dodge this. And then whenever this Q hits, if she takes Comet, the Comet's automatically going to hit because it has a really big slow on it, especially like level 1, a 40% slow. It triggers Airy. If you want to run Airy instead, it also triggers Scorch. There are a lot of different things that can trigger off of this. So it does quite a bit of poke early, and even just the raw damage, the empowered damage, which is what you're always going to get, you know, at level 3, or 3 points in this, which is going to be level 5. It's doing 150 damage for 70 mana. With a 0.6 AP ratio, it also applies a 56% slow, and then Airy, Scorch, or Comet, or whatever you decide to take. So it's extremely accurate. It becomes to be a pretty low cooldown, and it has a really long range of 1150. So it's just very, very consistent poke once you get used to it. And it ends up being pretty big damage. I mean, 285 damage on an ability that's on a 6-second base cooldown that's almost impossible to miss when you're sieging is very, very nice. And it applies an 80% slow for 1.75 seconds. Now, some of this does fall off. I believe it decays. Yeah, decaying. So, but it's a good slow. So it's just really consistent harass. It's really good for kiting later on. It's really good for running people down later on. It's really good for helping your allies hit those skill shots so that Jhin can hit his W, so that, you know, Jinx can hit her zaps. All that, Sivir can hit her boomerang, all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really good setup. And then, of course, everyone knows how Yuumi works. This basically just makes you untargetable as you jump around from person to person. Now, just don't worry about the adaptive force nerf. Like I said, it doesn't matter. In 90% of games, you're not putting any extra points in Yuumi. So it really doesn't matter. It's just kind of for show. It's just to try to answer the memers who are making those like, oh my god, 3,000 AP Veigar videos. You know, that type of stuff. That doesn't happen in real games. You don't actually put any points into this. It's just not worth it. Because your Q is so strong, and then your E is very strong too. It gives you a ton of burst healing. Remember, you can cast this twice. Up to 280 burst healing with a 0.8 ratio. And that scales with Athene's, and that scales with Revitalize. So it's a ton of healing. Then final chapter ends up being on a pretty low cooldown. A 1.75 root. Has a huge hitbox too. Like, it's got nice range at 1100, but it's a very, very big hitbox. It feels like it's like twice as wide as a Sona. And you can reposition this while you're casting. If you hit somebody with all of the waves, it can be, you know, like 240 or 320 base damage with a 0.8 ratio. So she's very, very nice. She's highly mobile. She has really good poke. She has excellent brush checking. This is something that people really underestimate as well. Later on, when it's really scary to check those bushes and you're trying to get vision down, if you have an ally with you, you can use this prowling projectile to very accurately check those bushes. So that's super good in the late game when you're trying not to get baited into Baron, when you're trying to, you know, establish vision and lock that down around an objective, then it's going to be very strong. Excellent in team fights. You know, she jumps around. She applies Airy every time she jumps onto somebody, so it spreads the Ardent Sensor around. She can spread the Athene's buff really well because she gets very free and easy charges on it with her Q late game. So she almost always goes into fights with full Athenes. It's like an extra 250 burst healing that also gets modified by your plus healing and shielding and your Revitalize. So it's just really, really strong in team fights. You can speed people up, so you can help your AD carry kite. You can help your assassin or your Hecarim or whoever run down the back line with your E. It's very, very good. And it feels like it's on a long cooldown, like 14 seconds to get a charge back. But realistically, in most team fights, it feels like this comes up pretty often. Once you get like 40% CDR, it's like every 7 seconds, and it feels very strong. And she has great itemization. I mean, Athene's is fantastic on her. You know, because you're able to charge it up so well with your Q. It gives you excellent harassment early on because it's a pretty heavy AP item. It starts off, if you have Frostfang and then get Athene's, it's going to give you 60 extra AP in addition to everything else that it does early on. And then you have Ardent that you can spread to people, but Redemption's also really nice for those team fight, for the team fight coordination. Now, the problems with Yuumi, though, are she has very high skill cap. She takes a lot of practice, and where that skill cap comes from is you have to learn when you're going to drop off of somebody, when you're going to pop off of them, hit your passive, and then jump back on people before you get CC'd or killed. And then just learning who you need to be on and what you need to be doing. You know, do you go forward and use your charges on your heal to try to help your Hecarim get to the back line? Do you stay on the back to try to help your AD carry peel with your prowling projectile and your zoomies? Where do you aim your final chapter, and do you jump off to keep channeling your final chapter to hit people, or do you try to stay attached to keep yourself safe? When should you jump between people without getting hit by too many things? Because you can get hit while you're in transit. That's what you'll learn really fast with Yuumi, is if someone is throwing that final auto attack that's going to kill you, it doesn't matter if you attach to somebody or not. You're going to die because it's going to hit you. So it only makes you untargetable whenever you are actually attached and nothing else is coming at you. So if you still have an Ignite on you, or a Malzahar E, or a red buff ticking, or whatever it is, you can still die while you're attached and while you're in transit. So she's just very, very risky, and you're losing a lot of power if you're not using this passive in team fight. So it's really imperative that you learn when to drop off and how to allocate your healing charges and how to do your final chapter, all that kind of stuff. So very high skill cap, and she's very vulnerable to CC and burst damage. She also needs a buddy with her, so to like go ward, you have to get someone to help you do that a lot of times. Now you can kind of escape yourself, use that zoomies for just the burst movement speed, which is handy sometimes just to catch up to people, or if you're warding and you notice someone is like coming after you, you might be able to get away. This is why I like getting boots on her, Ionian boots. I know there are some people that won't get any boots, but I really think that's worth it because you take 2 offensive summoners with her as well. Usually you take Ignite plus something else, either heal or exhaust. And your AD carry can take either barrier or teleport depending on the AD carry. So it gives you a lot of extra fighting power in the lane, and then Ionian boots give you a 10% cooldown on those active summoners that you can use every fight. And if you take Transcendence, which is really good on her, then that extra 10% CDR later on in the game does transition over into 20 AP, which is a really good value. It's about 420 gold value on that rune. So it's pretty nice. And I think that just having the tier 2 boots really helps you out a lot if you don't have a partner. If you need a ward, or you had to go back and get some wards and no one's back there with you and you have to walk back to lane. So I just think it's handy to have that. Now, you can do Airy, Mana Flow Band, Presence of Mind, Cut Down. Now, I think after the buff to her health and the nerf to Cut Down, I would probably recommend going Font of Life and Revitalize. Revitalize just feels so good on her because you have a lot of healing and shielding. I mean, you've got your passive with the Q. You have your Athene's procs. Redemption is what I usually recommend taking second, unless your AD carry is just super far ahead with Ardent Sensor. That benefits from Revitalize. So there's just so many things that Revitalize helps out. So it's just a very powerful rune. And then Font of Life is actually really nice because you can apply a slow consistently with your Q. It's not going to heal people a lot when they auto attack, but it does help you trigger Ardent Sensor so that you don't have to jump around to different people and put yourself in awkward positions to try to put Ardent on everybody. You just hit, one person with Font of Life, everyone else auto attacks that person, and everyone gets the Athene's buff. So it just helps out with that. You can also go Shield Bash if you want, because your shield is pretty much permanently up. You do get some extra resistances in the laning phase and a little bit of extra damage when you harass. That's handy. And some people say, well, if you just auto attack once, then you're not really getting a lot of benefit out of Shield Bash. It's like, well, usually what will happen is you'll auto attack, and then to get your bop and block shield, then you'll jump back on your AD carry, and you'll use your Q to start harassing a couple of times, and you'll jump back off. The shield transfers back over to you when you get off. That's going to give you a fresh shield bash, and then you're going to be able to trigger that extra damage and get those resistances. So shield bash is okay on her, but I tend to like Font of Life a little bit more. People might still be going Cut Down. Presence of Mind is very nice. It does ensure that your ult is up a lot more often, and you do have an extremely powerful ult. Cut Down is very good poke early on, but I'm telling you, Revitalize will definitely put up the number. So both of those are pretty good. It just kind of depends on the matchup. If you think you're going to steamroll the matchup, I guess if you think you're going to go Ardent Sensor early on, maybe not Revitalize because you're not going to have Redemption. Maybe that would be better to get something like a Cut Down, like a Presence of Mind instead. And if you do think you're going to go Redemption early, Revitalize is so strong with that item because it just throws the healing through the roof. So it just kind of depends on your itemization. Both of them can be pretty good. And speaking of itemization, I recommend Ionian boots. You can skip the boots if you want to, if you're really far ahead, or you can delay them because you can just hop a ride with somebody else. But Frostfang is definitely where you want to be, and then just Athene's, either Ardent Sensor or Redemption. Damn it. Well, we'll try to make it an hour. I said I wasn't going to take that long on it, but surprise, surprise. Taking a bit longer than I thought. But let's go through everybody else. I just feel like Yuumi needed a bit more explanation why she jumped up to tier 1 with only like a 47% win rate. But that's pretty much why. It's just excellent trading in lane, excellent CC later on, great team fighting, great scaling. She's just extremely strong right now. And at Pro Play, they've definitely figured it out. I mean, she's the highest presence support out there. 97% presence. She's picked or banned in 97% of games for the first couple of weeks of LCS here. Now, she doesn't have a great win rate. She's got a 40-something win rate, so most of that presence is from bans, but she can be extremely powerful. Okay. Let's pop off the Yuumi here, and let's go talk about Nami a little bit. So Nami's been a staple at tier 1 for a really long time, and I moved her up just a little bit because it feels like people are going back towards Assassins a bit more. Like, it feels like Kane's in virtually every single game these days. And we're seeing, I've been seeing more, at least in my games, a lot more like Zed, Talon, Echo's become a little bit more popular. So like all of these assassin type of champions are starting to come back into the meta. And Nami's better against assassins than things like Sona and Soraka, I think. because she has a bit more mobility and she has really good range. And this is something that a lot of people underestimate. And this is really good for AoE team fights too, which we're seeing a lot more things like Rumble, Cannon, Amumu, you know, these kind of like 5-on-5 team fight comps, Silas to an extent. So she has very good ranges that a lot of other enchanters don't have. So she has 725 range on her bounce. And remember, this is per bounce. So you can bounce this off of your front line, for example, and it can bounce all the way back and hit their front line or sometimes even their back line and bounce around. So the effective range on this is really a lot closer to 1450 if you start to get a lot of bounces off of it. And she's just kind of a good sort of manipulator of positioning in team fights. Like, she just heals people up, speeds your team up, slows the enemy down with Tidecaller Blessing. You can apply this to any of your allies to have them slow other people down. You can bounce this around off of your allies, off of Ebb and Flow. So there's just always a way that you can kind of be near the back safely and still do very productive things, like put slows on people and bounce around your W. The Tidal Wave is super long range. So even if you're rotating and you might be a little bit late to a fight, you can throw that Tidal Wave down, hit some people, slow them for a ton, really change the tide of a fight. It also helps stop things like Xerath from channeling his ult, Jhin from channeling his ult. You can knock out enemy teleports sometimes if you do it fast enough. You can knock out like Karthus if he's trying to channel his ult and he thinks he's safe when he's not dead. So there's a lot of uses for this that can be really handy. This stuff counts as knockups too if you have a Yasuo on your team. You know, Aqua Prison counts as a knockup, so does your Tidal Wave. And Aqua Prison is really great as well. You have to learn how to land this, but you can throw this over minions. So both of her harassment tools, I guess her W, all of this goes through minions pretty much. So you can always be a threat in the laning phase if you're standing like forward. If you hit that bubble, it's going to be a 1.5 stun with just 1 point in it. It's going to be massive. You can trade with your W through the minions, which not only does damage, but it also bounces back to you. So it's damage and healing in one ability that you can max. It's also your best team fight ability. So she has really good alignment in that sense to where the thing that's best in the laning phase is also best in team fighting. And that's not really true with a lot of supports out there. Usually you want to switch to like one thing for laning and then another thing for team fighting. So she just kind of has it all in one with one really powerful ability with Ebb and Flow that you max. She has a great 1-point wonder with Aqua Present. Excellent passive to help manipulate fights. Pretty good with a bunch of different types of champions with Tidecaller's Blessing, whether a champion's trying to kite, whether they're trying to chase people down. It can be really handy. Or if you just need to speed someone up or just apply Airy to somebody just to stop that last tick of Ignite from killing them. It can just be really, really handy. So she's kind of a jack of all trades, and just the fact that she has the Aqua Prison and the Tidal Wave to help you disengage makes her a little bit more respectable against champions like Nautilus or Amumu. These type of hard engaged champions, it can buy you some time. So she doesn't have as much disengage as someone like a Janna. She doesn't have like as much scaling as someone like Sona rather. But she's just a good jack of all trades. She's got a respectable amount of CC, good range, pretty good harassment early on, pretty good healing. So just kind of a good blind pick, all-around champion. So excellent lane pressure, pretty good kill threats, good safety, pretty respectable scaling, and pretty decent reliability. You just want to go Airy, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, and Scorch. I think I might actually change this over to Transcendence. I've been up on that a lot more. So that allows you to take Ionian Boots early on and then have that transition to AP later on. The extra, 5 or 6 AP off of Absolute Focus, it just feels like it doesn't matter that much in the early game. And then later on, you're going to almost always go over the cap on your CDR anyways. And so it's going to give you 20 AP, which is not quite the same amount that Absolute Focus would give you later. But I don't know. I feel like Absolute Focus just hasn't been as good for me lately. But maybe you should still go Absolute. I don't know. And then just Scorch, Footwear, and Biscuits. Then you can go Mobility Boots if you want to. If you do go Transcendence, then you do open up the possibility of going something like Ionian and still getting value out of it later on. Those are kind of your two boot choices. And you just want to go Athene's, Ardent Sensor, Redemption. You can trade out Redemption for Ardent if your AD carry is not doing that well. Just kind of depends on what's going on in the game. Okay, so her problems are she is squishy, she gets outscaled by enchanters, and she can get flanked and killed in the laning phase. So that is a little bit rough, but overall, still going to be an excellent champ. One of the safer enchanters out there, even though all enchanters are relatively, going to be a little bit vulnerable to ganks. Okay, Sona, highest win rate support still. Um, Very reliable. I mean, that's the biggest thing about Sona is that her AP ratios are massive, both on her harassment, her Q, her damage, which allows her to stack up and charge that Athene's a little bit faster, and then her W as well. Excellent shielding, excellent healing. The fact that it's a really good shield in addition to a really good heal makes her a little bit less vulnerable to grievous wounds than someone like a Soraka, who's the other kind of premier healing team fighter. Um, but she has very reliable harass, and this is something that can't really be overstated. Is you just walk up, press Q, if it's safe, press auto, boom, harassment. So it's kind of like Nami, where it's just very simple, point click. You don't even have to point click. You just press Q like within a 1,000 range or whatever of somebody, and you're going to get that harassment down. You're going to apply Airy, you're going to apply Scorch, you're going to charge up your Frostfang. So it's just super reliable. In team fights, just spam your Q, spam your W. Yes, is it ideal if you hit priority targets with your green power cord to lower their damage? Sure it is. But, even if you don't do that a lot of the time, even if you mess up your power cord rotation, she's still going to be super effective. And I think that's what makes her very strong. It's just so difficult to mess up this champion. Like, the only way you can really mess her up is just dying a lot. Or, missing all of your ults. But it's a pretty big hitbox on the ult. You're eventually going to hit one of them, and it's going to make a huge difference in the game a lot of times. So, extremely reliable, very abusive of Athene's and Ardent Sensor. Your auras apply Ardent Sensor to everybody. Airy applies Athene's. You can spam Airy over and over again. All of your auras apply Airy, by the way, not just your W. So, you can apply it with W, but you can also apply it with your Q, your E. All of it applies Airy. So you're just spamming out this Airy as fast as possible. You're gaining those Athene stacks off your auto attacks and your Qs. You're just churning through the Athene stacks. You're getting extra Revitalize and plus healing and shielding for your Athenes. It's just all of it just basically means if they don't kill you instantly and you get off 2 spell rotations, you win every team fight. Pretty much. So if you get like 4 or 5 seconds in a team fight and they haven't just completely deleted your team, you're going to win. Because each one of those W's is going to be putting out like thousands of effective healing, like over 1,000, bordering on 2,000 once you get all of your items. Effective healing every 4 seconds, which is just almost impossible for any team to keep up with. So she's just really, really good. And especially since we're kind of transitioning more towards a team fight oriented meta. Once again, we're seeing the Amumu's, the Kennons, the Silases, the Rumbles, those types of champs, Jarvan. Sejuani is making a comeback. All of these are really, really good with Sona because she's just excellent at layering that CC and just making sure the enemy team can just never move. Excuse me. So she is very vulnerable to ganks, though. She has really low base stats. In order to get the shield on people in team fights with the W aura, you have to be within 450 range. Try to spread that among a bunch of different people, so that makes you vulnerable to that AoE, to the cannon, the rumble, all of that stuff. So that can be a problem. And something that a lot of people don't really think about that much, but she is really weak at warding and roaming. Like, she has very poor vision control because she has nothing to check bushes. She has no skill shots other than like an ult, I guess. If you just randomly want to throw your ult, but obviously you're not going to do that if you don't know if someone's in there. So other champions have some way to check bushes usually. Like Soraka can throw a Q in a bush. Nami can throw a bubble in a bush. Rakan can throw a Q into a bush. Yuumi can throw a Q in a bush. So some of those are still, you're going to be kind of vulnerable, but Sona is the most vulnerable because she has no way to check bushes. So if you ever lose vision control, it's extremely scary to have to walk up and try to get that vision control. And she has very limited escape. She has no mobility outside of just pressing her E and just hoping that you get away. So just really vulnerable to ganks, vulnerable to roams, low vision control, but overall one of the highest scaling supports in the game. So she's very good. Just be very cautious. So be careful, particularly if you're playing her into assassins, into things like Kayn, Zed, those type of champions, because she can't comfortably get armor. Like, she can get Ninja Tabby, but outside of that, you really want to be getting the Enchanter items, or you're losing a lot of effectiveness with her. You can try to get something like a Zhonya's Hourglass if you really need to, but it's going to slow down your build a lot and make you a lot less effective. Because she's basically a huge stat stick. Like, she just scales so much off of plus healing and shielding and AP that you really, really want those to be the main items that you're getting. Okay, Zyra, I moved up a little bit. I think she was tier 1 last week. She might be pretty close to the same as she is this week, but She has excellent pressure in the laning phase. Those plants put out a lot of harassment. They apply Scorch and Comet really well. Don't forget all those plant shots. Every time your plants hit, it is going to lower the cooldown on Comet, so Comet is up very often. And the fact that the Scuttle got pushed back a little bit, I've been talking about this for several patches, means it's a lot less likely that you're going to get level 2 ganked. So that means that you are able to more freely apply more and more pressure with the Zyra. And that means you're going to push in a tower. You're going to be able to get some tower plates, or you might actually be able to get priority with her by the time you hit level 2 or 3 to go get the Scuttle yourself. And she is very good at doing things like Scuttle because she can root the Scuttle with her E, do a lot of extra damage with the plant. So she does take Scuttles pretty quickly as well. So you can get that priority, go take those Scuttles, get an advantage for your lane. And you should try to do that just in general. If you can ever get priority in a lane and you think you can go get that Scuttle for either yourself or the AD carry, go do it. Remember, it's worth like almost an entire minion wave worth of gold. I don't know about the experience exactly, but it's worth a hell of a lot. So it'll give you a massive advantage if you can get that Scuttle. It also refreshes and refills your health and your mana. So it's an extremely powerful resource that gets underutilized even in high platinum and low diamond. People just don't try to make a play on that Scuttle. So there's a reason challengers freak out about the Scuttle all the time and why it has been nerfed several times. It's because it's very, very strong. And it also gives you a free ward pretty much in the area. So very, very strong. So she has excellent lane pressure, excellent wave clear, just throwing that E down a minion wave. Be careful with that because that does make you a little bit vulnerable to all-ins if you're against an all-in champion because it's on a 12-second cooldown. But if you're just against something, you know, like a Lux or like, you know, a Soraka or a Janna or something like that, you can more freely just push that wave. If you have a Sivir, you just throw your E right down that minion wave level 5 when your E is level 3 and Sivir's got that level 3 boomerang, instant clear the wave. I mean, like, literally instant. Unless it's a cannon minion. And then that frees you up to go do something else. Go ward the enemy jungle. Go make a play on their blue with your jungler. Go make a play on dragon. Grab the Scuttles. I mean, you name it, you can do it. Just loop around. Hang out in their bush. Act like you're going in the river. And then just loop around, make sure you sweep the bush and it's clear, and then as soon as they walk back up, kill them out of the bush. There's so many options you can do with Zyra that she's just extremely oppressive in the laning phase. You basically win every matchup with Zyra unless you get ganked or unless you screw up, pretty much. So she is one of the best hard carry supports, especially in lower elo. I like her a lot more than Brand because that plant harass is just way more consistent. If it's open lane, if you've already pushed the wave, then just hitting that Q plant, it's going to hit them. Like, they can't dodge it. Even if they dodge the Q itself, the plant's still going to hit them once or twice, which is going to trigger Comet and Scorch on them, and Frostfang. So you're just constantly getting in this extra harass off of them. Some people are moving away from the sustain champs early, so we're seeing a lot less Lucian, a lot less Vayne as well. So that damage is going to stick on a champion like a Jinx or like a Sivir. They're not going to have, you know, they're not going to be getting things like Blather and King as often early on. So your harassment's going to stick a lot more often. So just excellent harass, great for taking plates, great for pressure. Awesome burst in team fights. I mean, you can completely delete a single person with a full rotation on a proper, you know, Zyra ult. But at the same time, you can delete an entire team as well. And it not only does a lot of damage, but that knockup is huge. That's a 1-second CC on everybody that allows your team to just do their thing, right? So if you knock up 3 people in a team fight, not only is it a ton of damage, but it's just going to layer together so well with your Kennen or with your Sejuani or, you know, your Rumble, all of these other team fight champions. It's excellent. Great with Jarvan. You know, Jarvan dunks 3 people, you full combo, they're deleted a lot of times. So that's what really separates her from someone like Brand in my mind. It's 2 things, really, or 3 things, I guess. More consistent harass in the laning phase. Really good CC in team fights. You know, she's got that 2-second root. I think it's up to 1.75 seconds, maybe 2 seconds off of her E. And then you've got the 1-second knockup after that. Brand's ult doesn't CC people. Unless you get Rylai's, it might slow them. You can stun like 1 person. Then also it's the vision control. People forget about this, but her vision control is fantastic because you can activate those plants and they can check the bushes for you at 800 range, which is great. And it also sees through control wards. This is something people forget about. If you put a normal ward in a bush, not only is it dangerous to walk up to 450 range to place it, but the control ward's going to shut out that vision, particularly on that tri-bush in bot lane. So that means it's really scary to try to clear that, because the jungler could be coming up. The enemy Lux might be trying to hit you with a bind, with her Q. You don't know, because it locks out vision, because it's a control ward. That's what it does. But with the plants don't count as wards, so it does not lock out the vision. You get that full vision there for like 10 seconds while your plant is up. And it's a bodyguard. It protects you from skill shots. It fires at enemies that try to get close. So she's just fantastic at controlling bushes, particularly against other type of all-in champions. Those plants have great utility against hook champions too. Don't forget, that plant intercepts a Nautilus hook, a Blitzcrank hook. A lot of the engages out there, a Pyke hook, are intercepted by these plants. So they just create a lot of problems for enemies to deal with if you use them properly. Now, her issue is she is very vulnerable to ganks, like a lot of these other ranged champions, and she has very expensive items. So if you're not getting ahead early, it can feel really bad if you have to take early backs, because sometimes you're just sitting there on 600 gold and you really need a blasting wand, or you really need to complete your Sork boots or whatever. You really need to complete your haunting guys, and you just can't because, reasons, right? Because your 80 carry died and you lost control of the lane and now you have to take a bad back. Just to get more wards, or, just any number of things where you lose momentum in the game. It can feel really bad. And you can get outscaled, because a lot of the enchanters, most of their items are going to be 2,100 to 2,300 gold. Most of Zyra's items are going to be, 2,700 to 3,000 gold a lot of the time, depending on if you're getting, Rylai's or Void Staff or Leandries or Morellos or whatever. Your items are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 to 50% more expensive than traditional enchanter items. So if you're not getting those plates, if you're not getting those kills and assists, she can fall really far behind. So she is excellent. I think that she's the best AP support out there. So you just want to get, I think most of the time, Leandries, unless they have a really good reason to get Morellos. If they have a lot of healing, you can get Morellos. But after the nerfs, I'd just be very careful with that item. I think that Leandries plus Rylai's is probably the best place to be most of the time. And then Sork boots always. You just really need the spell pen. So yeah, still going to be a strong champion though. You have to learn her a little bit. I think she's a bit harder to play than Brand to start with, but she's just weird. You just have to get used to casting your spell and then putting plants on top of them while your spell's in midair. So she's just unique, but once you get used to her, I don't think she's that hard. And then finally I have Rakan here. Now Rakan is another person who I think he has actually climbed out of the sub 50% group. He's up at like 51%. But Rakan has definitely made a resurgence after they made his W actually usable again and gave him a lot more base stats. I think they gave him like 50 more health. It's like, yes, you can't ult and then W immediately, so that does hurt him in pro play and sometimes in solo queue. But a lot of times you're still going to run him down anyways. You press R, you get a lot of movement speed. Half the time I'm pressing R and then Eing onto an ally anyways. Whether I'm trying to peel or whether I'm trying to follow up on that Sejuani engage or whatever. So you can still press E when you're Ring, and that is going to allow you to chain your CC a lot better. So I think he's really good. And one thing that Rakan does excel at, which is why he's number one right now, is he's the best enchanter versus assassins. Now, Lulu is still pretty good at it, but I still ultimately think that Rakan is a lot better, and especially in this kind of camp bottom meta, y'all know what I'm talking about, where it's just 4 people bot lane 24/7, and your jungler's off just like wanking it in the top jungle or something, just wasting time camping top lane bushes, and you're just getting camped over and over and over again. Rakan is the best person to deal with that because he has so much mobility. He's got 2 dashes off of his shield. He's got another dash off his W, and he's got kind of that emergency button with his R where he can touch somebody and then just run away if you need to. So there's so many different ways you can deal with that. Then you also have your Q to help you heal up a little bit during the laning phase to provide a little bit of light poke. So he's just extremely versatile. If you're getting camped, he's the best person to have on your side. He has so much mobility, shielding, CC. It's just really a nightmare to try to catch Rakan a lot of the time. And he does have a weak laning phase. So, you know, you are landing your Qs. If you do have an all-in lane, you can get kills. You know, like if you have someone like a Draven or a Jen on your team and you land that W, you can definitely get some kills on there. But his harass and his all-in is going to be a bit more conditional than some of the other champions on the list. So he does still have a fairly weak laning phase, but you can survive it now. Kind of like Yuumi, people underestimate just exactly how much his effective health is. Because he does get a shield, not as often as Yuumi. But his Q does provide him with some healing and his AD carry with some healing. And it's a decent amount early on. You just have to put 1 point into it to get the maximum amount of healing. Although I recommend putting 3 points in the laning phase. The real reason you want 3 points is because it stays the same amount of mana the entire time. It's only 60 mana early on, and it does lower the cooldown and increases the damage pretty significantly on it. It doesn't really mess with the healing. And this healing may not seem like much. It's like, oh, whatever, you know, level 5, it's like 42 healing. But remember, this is healing both people. So you're really getting 82 healing out of that with a 1.4 AP ratio. Because it triggers twice. And it does damage. So if you have 3 points in this, it's doing 160 damage and 84 healing with, you know, a ton of AP, right? Like a 2.0 AP ratio split between damage and healing. So for 60 mana. So it's very, very efficient. And it also triggers, of course, if you want to run Airy and Scorch, you can do that. That's kind of an outdated build. Most people don't do that. A lot of people go Guardian these days, but it is still on the table. But yeah, you just want 3 points of Q in the laning phase because this stuff gets really expensive. Like if you go with multiple points in W, it starts to go up to like 70 mana. And the shield is what I recommend maxing first for team fights, and that gets pretty expensive. It's 80. Now, you can jump twice off of just one application of this, which is a huge shield. I mean, that's up to a 280 total shield with a 1.6 ratio if you use both shields. So it's a really, really big shield. And it goes down to a 12-second cooldown, which is very nice. But I would not max that out in lane. I would go 3 points of Q in lane just so you have some reliable harass until you start building towards your Zeeks. You get a little bit more mana, and then you can start going for that Battle Dance max by level 10. So I think he's great. He has high skill cap. But I think he's excellent into assassins because he does get this shield as well every now and then, which once again doesn't seem like a lot, but an 85 shield that you're able to trigger, you know, reliably, like at least twice a lot of the time. If you're landing auto attacks, you're landing your Qs, it does lower the cooldown of it. It's a pretty good shield that doesn't fade, though. So it's probably going to give you somewhere between, you know, like maybe 85 to 170 shield. So maybe like 130 shield on average every minute. So it's not as good as Yuumi's, but it's still pretty solid. But yeah, that gives him a good chunk of effective health between the healing in your Q and the shield that you get off your passive. You can actually make it through a lot of lanes. And then, of course, once you hit level 6, that's when it's kind of off to the races. You can make really good plays, jumping off of allies, initiating yourself with ult plus W, rotating really quickly around the map. But, you know, I like him into the Assassins because, once again, that double shield is 280 total shield with a 1.6 ratio. You take Guardian, which is another big shield. You can apply your Q for a heal. You can take Redemption on him as a second item if you need to. So it's really just all of those shields. When you combine Guardian with double shielding somebody with this 1.6 ratio, you're going to be giving like a 400 or 500 shield a lot of the time on somebody. And you have that CC, so Zed tries to jump on your AD carry. You know, you can R... E over to him, it's going to instantly charm him. Then you can press W to knock him up. Your AD carry is going to run away. So he's not going to get a lot of value out of that R or Talon, you know, trying to fully rotate or like Rengar. Any of these champions, he's going to be really good into that type of thing because of his combination of mobility, CC, and like really big shields. So that's why I prefer him over a lot of the other enchanters, is because he's really hard to hunt down himself. You can take armor items like Zeke's, you know, like Knight's Vow pretty comfortably to protect yourself, and you can protect allies with this shield with Guardian, and it has such a high base damage. Yes, it does scale a lot with AP, but 280 is still a really high base, even if you go for something like a Zeke's, plus a Knight's Vow. I think I said Guardian. I don't know. If you go Zeke's plus Knight's Vow, which is really common, and you can get a defensive boot like a Merc Treads or Ninja Tabby. Now, the problem with him is he's very high skill cap. It's really tough to make decisions when you should go in or not, and he does have kind of a weak laning phase. Another thing is he's very, very weak to CC most of the time. So if you're trying to go in and save somebody against like an Amumu or a Kennen or a Rumble or a, whatever, you're probably going to get roasted. So you have to be very, very careful against some of these AoE team comps, especially if they have AoE CC involved. So because if you get CC'd, you're going to get blown up almost instantly, unless you take something like a Quicksilver Sash. So taking him against something like a Nautilus with that point-click CC, or even something like Morgana can be really rough, or what else has a lot of CC out there? Even something like Yuumi, it can be tough to go in and shield your ally because you're probably going to get rooted. So good against assassins. Questionable against enemies that have one of those heavy CC AoE damage teamfight comps. Okay, Nautilus still going to be really popular. I've been talking about Nautilus for years at this point. He did get some buffs 4 or 5 patches ago, which have helped him out, but I think a lot of people are just sleeping on him. He's just very reliable. I think he's the best engaged support. You just press R from 800 units away, and that missile's coming for him. Regardless of how much mobility they have or who wants to try to step in the way to block something, it doesn't matter. You're going to hit them. Unless they have something like a Zhonya's Hourglass or like a Tahm Kench or a Morgana on their team, it's going to hit them. So it's really nice range, 825. It not only hits your target, but it also knocks everyone up. I mean, look at some of these numbers. At level 11, that's 2.5 seconds of CC on one ability that can hit multiple targets. That's on a 120-second cooldown. It's a crazy amount of CC, and that's pretty solid damage too. I mean, 325 damage as well. So that's really strong. Great, damage later on in the game with your Riptide. I guess not as insane as a lot of other champs out there, but it's still decent. This is also really strong wave clear because it's on a low cooldown early on, and it doesn't use any of your major CC. You still have your ult, you still have your Q ready to go, and your shields. You can use this to help push lanes pretty quickly, to get priority, to go get that scuttle. Very good with the scuttle, with his passive, with his dredge line. He can CC the scuttle a lot, make sure that you blow it up quickly. So, very good at team fighting, very good at initiating, really good mobility. People forget you can hook walls off of this and sort of rotate the situations faster. It makes him a little bit safer from ganks. So if someone's about to flank you, you've got an Ezreal that can get away with his E. You can also get away with your staggering blow, or not your staggering blow, your dredge line. So they did lower the damage on it by 20, but I think he's still going to be pretty strong despite that. So yeah, just really solid. I mean, some of the other problems with him is he has very limited harassment in the laning phase. He's not, his hook is not as strong as something like a Blitzcrank hook or even a Pyke hook or a Thresh hook, because he has to go in when he does that. So it's going to pull him closer. So if they're under tower and you try to hook, it can be really awkward, especially if you miss the hook under tower and you hook the tower itself, or you hook the wall within the tower's reach, and they hard engage on you. That's really awkward. So his hook is a little bit weird if you're trying to go around towers or other terrain. Obviously, he can't hook people over walls. So that's a little awkward for the harassment. So he's one of the worst champions at harassing or doing anything if the enemy's pushed in under tower, which is going to happen a lot with a lot of AD carries right now. Jinx wants to push, Sivir wants to push. A lot of champions are going to be pushing into tower. So that is awkward for him. So he wants kind of like a lane position that's neutral, where you're hanging out in the middle and trying to zone out the enemy and intimidate them. So pretty good with something maybe like a Draven, although Draven wants to push too with his Q. So he is really good at engage. He's just not as good under tower as some of the other champions out there. And he has really low scaling overall. You can buy stuff if you want to, like an Ardent Sensor or like a Leandries for a little bit more utility. Ardent Sensor's okay, like really late game if you get to like a 4th item, because you can take Font of Life and all of your CC can apply Font of Life to multiple people. And he does have AP ratio, so it's okay. But realistically, let's be real. You're going to be going Zeke's. You're going to be going Knight's Vow and then Equinox, and that's going to be all the items. And your Tier 2 boots you're going to get most games. So, in theory, he does have the ability to get some different items out there, potentially, but most games it's just not going to happen. So, he has pretty limited scaling, just like a lot of tanks out there. So, if you don't end that game against the Janna or the Sona or whatever late game, and they have a really good teamfight comp, you're probably just going to lose. Like, there was a game I played earlier tonight where they had a super fed Vayne and we had an Ashe on our team, and everyone else is doing pretty well, but we just could not keep up with the Vayne. We just did not have enough damage for it, and I didn't have anything to help my team, in that situation. Like, I could basically ult the Vayne and then try to get to the back line as much as possible, but if people don't follow up, it sucks. And that's just kind of the story of tanks in solo queue a lot of the time. If the game goes long, you're facing something like a Vayne that gets a ton of items, or you're facing something like a Sona that's got all of her items, or even like a Yuumi. Like, it can just feel like impossible because you're just going to see them heal through everything with their redemption. Their whole team's going to be scaling hard off of that Ardent Sensor, and it just feels like you can never kill anybody. And you just lose at that point. It's like, yeah, you can CC someone, but you're just not going to be able to scale to keep up a lot of the time. So pretty good, but definitely feels like he's on the clock in this meta right now because there's so many enchanters that are so strong. So you do have a good matchup against many enchanters if you can exploit them early, but you got to make sure you close out. Okay, other champions on there, and so you just want to go like Aftershock, Font of Life, Conditioning, and then just Overgrowth, and then Footwear and Biscuits is what I'd pretty much go with him. Okay, let's get Rakan out of there, Nautilus out of there. Next couple of champs, then we'll just go ahead and close it out here. Janna has been rising up a lot in terms of overall win rate. So she's up at number 2 now, 53.8. She is better than she has been for a while. Just my problem with Janna right now is that she just doesn't have any like CC or like ways to engage fights. I mean, even Yuumi like has harass with her Q. She's got her ult for fights. Sona has really good trading in lane. Nami has really good trading. Lux can hit her binds with her Q. Did I skip Lux, by the way? I feel like Lux was above Janna. Is that right? Yeah, let me actually do Lux first, just to go in order. I forgot about Lux here. And then we'll go back to Janna. So Lux is very strong. She does still have her bind, a 2-second Q. She's got really good harassment with her E. She charges up Ardent Sense or Athene's Unholy Grail really well, kind of like Yuumi. So you're going to start off with an extra little bit of burst in team fights. Her shield is very nice. If you hit multiple targets, it's one of the few shields that did not get nerfed a long time ago, so it does stay up for a long time. Does have huge benefits to it. The big thing about Lux is you just have to play her a lot to get used to her because everything's a skill shot. Your shield's a skill shot, your E, your ult, your Q, everything. So you have to really get used to the trajectory, the movement speed of all these different projectiles. And so if you put a lot of time in on her, I think she can be really good. She does get enchanter items. I highly recommend you do not build things like Archangels or Ludens or whatever. If you have to get an AP item, I guess Ludens is probably the best one, but most of the time, like the reason that she's become so strong is because Athene's is so good on her right now with Ardent Sensor, with Aftershock, because that makes you a lot better against hard engaged champs out there. So that gives you a little bit more play against Assassins. But I still think she's fairly weak to Assassins despite the Aftershock buff. She's very vulnerable to ganks. She does have good harassment, good all-in, but it's just very, very conditional, right? It's conditional on you hitting those skill shots, which is partially your skill, but it's partially the enemy's skill in dodging. And so, depending on your elo bracket, it can be good. I think she's a lot better at lower elo brackets because they're just not going to dodge her Q as much a lot of times. And a higher elo bracket, people are still going to dodge it. Although she does have a pretty good win rate. I mean, she's number 3 overall on the win rate, or number 4 rather, I should say, overall on the win rate, even at sort of this Platinum Plus type of bracket. So still going to be strong. So excellent harass, really good against things like Zyra because she outranges them. Excellent vision control like Zyra, like Yuumi. She does check bushes really well. Excellent wave clear with her E and her ult. So really strong, just very high skill cap, very weak mobility. So if you do get caught out, if you are out of position, you are probably going to die. So she does have long ranges, so you don't need to get caught out, but if they get flanks on you, it can feel really bad. So against some of these hard engaged champs like Nautilus, like Rakan, if you don't land that bind, you are extremely vulnerable. So just be careful who you're picking her into. And I feel like she can get outscaled by champions like Sona and Yuumi potentially. So you need to be a little bit on the cautious side picking her, but if you can get away with it, she is very good. She does provide a lot of harassment early on. A big difference between her and Zyra, I think Zyra is more consistent and bigger harassment. I think that Zyra does a lot more damage and has more kill threat in the laning phase, but I do think that Lux has better itemization and scales a little bit better over time if the game is neutral, if she's not really far ahead. So, still going to be pretty strong. Make sure that you're going, once again, you're going for the Athene's Ardent Sensor build with Aftershock most of the time. You can take Comet if you really want to in some matchups, but the big thing that's made her popular is Aftershock. And that's pretty much what everybody gets on her. At least the last time I checked. I haven't checked today, but yeah. There's a couple of holdouts getting Comet in some matchup, but it's almost exclusively Aftershock, Relentless Hunter, and Taste of Blood. Okay, so Janna, talking about Janna. Janna did get some changes on the last patch that has helped her win rate out as predicted. You know, gave her a couple of percentage points there. I think I said she'd get 1%. I think she's almost had exactly a 1% win rate boost there. So her shield is up a bit more often. She does have excellent peel. So she's great if your AD carry is great, pretty much. And the reason that she's more reliant on the AD carry than other champions is that her shield gives a lot of AD, and that's one of her biggest strengths. Is if you can keep that shield up, it gives 40 extra AD, which is like a free BF sword, which is great with crit users like Jinx, like Twitch, Sivir. All these champions are going to love to have a Janna on their team. She has excellent peel. So against some of these other tanks, like a Sejuani, like a Jax, even like a Jarvan, those types of champs, she can peel them back really, really well. So she is great if your team has an advantage, but she's very difficult to try to force an advantage if they have a better team comp or if they're currently winning. It's hard for you to get back in the game. So you do have raw scaling, and you have excellent defense, excellent peel with your tornado, your ultimate. You can reset fights, so she's really good against these team fights type of comps, like your Jarvans, your Rumbles, your Cannons, all of that stuff. She can potentially heal through a lot of that with her ult and push everyone back, reset the fight. So that is very nice. She's also very fast. People forget that about her, but when you put those mobility boots on her with her passive and her W, she's just zipping around the map. She can rotate and just show up and drop some shields and some slows and just out of nowhere completely turn fights around. So she is very good at Clown Fiestas. The problem is she does get out-harassed in the laning phase because she doesn't have a heal, and her shield is still on a long cooldown and is very ineffective early on. So she can get bullied by things like Sona, like Nami, Lux, Zyra. Pretty much anybody's going to be able to bully her out in the laning phase. But if you get through that laning phase, you have something like a Sivir, like a Jinx, like a Vayne, that can be good. But if you pick Janna and they pick something like Ezreal, or your team picks something like Ezreal and the enemy team picks something like Jinx, you're probably screwed because you're going to have no way to influence that, right? It's just going to be like you're putting a shield on Ezreal, giving him 40 AD, then the enemy is also going to be giving their Vayne, their Nami is going to be giving their Vayne Ardent Sensor and all of the buffs that Nami gives out. It's just going to be rough. Or they're going to have a bunch of tanks or something on their team, and they're going to have a Sona, and it's like, well, Sona got to 2 items. I guess game's over because, I have no way to engage and kill the Sona instantly or to kill the AD carry. So the fact that she lacks any sort of engage and, like, her CC is very limited to defensive CC to peel people off can be tough. So if you're winning or if you have a really good comp, she's very, very good. If they have hard engage and they have to engage or you outscale, you win. You have the Jinx, you have the Twitch, you have the Sivir, that type of thing, then she's excellent. But it's really hard. Like I said, if you fall behind or if you have a bad comp, she's not going to do that great. But she is excellent at peeling if you do have a reliable comp, particularly someone who uses AD. Either your AD carry, or you have someone else like a Kindred on your team, or a Fiora or a Riven, somebody else that can abuse that shield, particularly crit users, then she can be really good. So limited engage options, reliant on someone having good AD on your team. So yeah. So she's okay. She's definitely got a high win rate. It's just she's very, very good at what she does, but she's not very flexible. She's not very versatile. Okay, Pyke is another champion. Like I said earlier, he's going to be, and I guess we're going to have another hour, 15-minute tier list here. See if we can get it in an hour and 10. Just 5 minutes faster than last time. I think this visual, I like this presentation here where I have some notes that you can see as I'm going through, but you can also see the tier list at all times and who I'm on. I think I like this format at least, so there's that. But Pyke is going to be really high on a lot of tier lists. People rate him, S tier most of the time for solo queue. And a lot of that is because he's really, really good at making plays. I would say he's one of the most versatile playmakers out there because he has invisibility, so he can roam really well. He can put vision in the jungle safely and effectively because he can show up stealth and just drop those wards on their blue and then get out if he wants to. He can, zoom in and check Baron if he wants to. He has a ton of mobility. So not only does he have the stealth, but he moves really quickly when he's in stealth. He has his E that can go over walls and stuns people that try to chase him. So he's just a real pest to try to run down. But he also has really good engage. So he's got his hook. He's got his stun off of his E, which he can flash and almost always get that stun. He has the extra sustain in lane. So if he gets poked out by things like a Lux or like a Zyra, he can sustain through most of it. So he has a lot of playmaking potential. And then, of course, his ultimate, where he gets a ton of extra gold himself to offset the fact that he has to get really expensive items. And he does add a lot of damage to your team. So if he does manage to get things like Dustblade, like Ghostblade, especially if they have a squishy team comp, he can get those execute. So he is probably the best snowball champion out there. And like I said, tons of playmaking from stuns to hooks to invisibility, movement speed, ultimate resets. So he's really good at playing around almost any team comp. He doesn't have to get Ardent Sensor, right? So it doesn't matter if your AD carry sucks. If your mid lane mage is doing really well, if it's like a Diana or a Cassidon, you can go there and help them out. You can camp them, make those plays, get around those wards, use those ultimate resets. So very good. So he is heavily reliant. He is very heavily reliant on gold, but at the same time, he's able to make that gold. So that is pretty good. And then he is really high skill cap, though, so you have to land those hooks. They have a lot of time to see you charging that up, usually like a half a second, unless you're throwing the hook out of a bush or something. So you do have a really nice setup there. Hold on, my wife's calling me. This is kind of weird. Give me... Because it's like freaking 6 in the morning. Let me just call her back real quick and mute this. I'm not going to edit this out. Hopefully it's something real quick. I'm just going to mute it. Okay. My daughter's just crying in the crib or whatever, so I'm gonna go check her out in a little bit. I don't think she's in trouble. She maybe just had a nightmare or something. So we're pretty much wrapping this up though. And then so high skill cap, relatively squishy with the new builds. Tank Pyke was extremely good when he could go something like Frozen Heart back in the day. But now he pretty much has to go kind of the Dustblade, Ghostblade build, which is good if you're really far ahead, but less options if you're behind and you can't serve as a primary tank. So you got to be really careful because he is squishy and he is weak versus tanks. If you aren't getting those executes in fights, he falls off really quickly. He doesn't have very good peel. Like, he can try to peel with his hook and his stun, but it's just not really that great compared to a lot of the other enchanters out there. So very good if your team's ahead, if you need playmaking, if it's going to be a clown fiesta and you just want to run around and try to snowball really hard. He's one of the best kind of do-it-yourself hard carry champs, but you have to make the plays. You have to see it. You have to utilize his toolkit because if you fall behind, once again, that Sona, that Yuumi, whatever, late game, and you're just sitting there, on your Dustblade and they have Redemption plus Athenes, you're going to have a really big problem on your hands. So he's okay. He has like a 50% win rate. Once again, that's not necessarily indicative of him being bad. It's just indicative of him being a high skill cap champion. So you want to make sure you're practicing him, getting that right. And then finally, the last one that I'll talk about here is Soraka. So Soraka has great harass, great sustain. You have to land those Qs, though, and that is different from Nami and Sona. And that's partially why she's down a little bit more on the tier list, is because you have to actually land the Qs. If you're not landing the Qs, during the laning phase, you're going to be in big trouble because that's your sustain, that's your harassment. You need to land it, and it's harder to land that sometimes against enemies, and it can make you vulnerable as well. Sometimes you'll get greedy and step a little too far forward to try to land those Qs. So you can't just spam your E anymore for the free harass and the silence. It just doesn't do enough damage. But she does scale really well. Another problem with Soraka is Grievous Wounds just completely wrecks you, right? So she's balanced around them having Grievous Wounds. So if they don't have it, then you just feel extremely overpowered. You have insane healing late game, and just really, really high burst healing with your ult. But if they do have it, it feels real bad. And most people are going to get the Grievous Wounds with either Morellonomicon or Executioners. So she's okay. She's just really dicey, and the enemy has a lot of control over how effective you're going to be. Do they buy Grievous Wounds? Can they dodge Qs? Do they camp you? Because if they camp you, you're in big trouble. Like a lot of the other squishy enchanters, she has very, very low CC. She's really squishy. They can just dive you and kill you with a big stack at your tower. So she's not very good at playing survival mode in the bot lane. She's one of the worst enchanters at that because you have to be very close to land your W. It's like 500 range to heal people, and it hurts you. So you're going to be really low health yourself, so they can just focus you out, and you have nothing to heal or shield yourself outside of your ult. Like your Q does heal you a little bit over time, but that's not going to stop you, when Rengar jumps in your face. So just very, very vulnerable compared to other champions. So much higher risk, but potentially higher reward than some of the other champions. I still think Sona can hang with her late game team fights if both of them are left alone. But it's the burst healing off of her is really good. So if you're against a like an all-in burst damage comp, like AoE comp, you've got your Kennen, your Rumble, that type of stuff, and like Kennen engages, does half the damage on your team. You just press ult, immediately erases all that damage he just did. So it's that thing that she has. Redemption plus her ultimate plus just her natural healing she can throw down is a massive amount of burst healing over 2.5 seconds. So makes her very, very good against these kind of burst AoE comps with the Amumu's, the Rumbles, all that kind of stuff. So she does have a place. Very good against things like Karthus. So there are definitely some places where you can pick her, but unless you are just a huge Soraka enthusiast, I would wait and see what the enemy team has. Make sure at least that they don't have a lot of assassins. If they have 2 assassins, 1 mid, 1 in the jungle, which is pretty common these days, I'd be very, very cautious. But she can be very good if you have a ton of tanks, or if they have poke on their team and they just don't have a lot of assassins. She can be great. Okay, final few champs that we talked about. Lulu did get a buff. She could potentially be good. I'm not sure if those are quite enough numbers. The shield numbers are looking good. If you do want to play Lulu, she's very good with Kog'Maw, very good with Twitch, Jinx, these champions that want a lot of attack speed. She can be good. Pretty good game against assassins. And so the problem is she's very vulnerable, has very limited escapes, and you have to choose what to do on your W. Do you want to help out your allies, or do you want to CC the enemy? You don't have both. And so she can fall prey to things like Sona, Nami, Yuumi during the laning phase because she doesn't have a heal. But if you can make it out of the laning phase, she can be pretty good. Once again, very reliant on someone who has a lot of attack speed being competent on your team. Just not as effective with things like a Diana, like a Kassadin, some of these assassins out there. Like, yeah, she can boost them up with her ult, but her W is not going to do much to help out. Although, then again, you can always use it as polymorph if you don't have a good target to Whimsy. So, kind of flexible, kind of good. It's just the problem is her Q is pretty lackluster, and her E hasn't been that great for the last year or so, although it did get 2 buffs. So I'll have to play her and see. She could be as high as tier 2 if you're really good on her, but Karma, once again, is kind of a wait and see. I've got her at tier 3, could be as high as tier 2, most likely. Excellent harass in the laning phase. Just the problem is, like we talked about not last time, but just about an hour ago at this point, just really low numbers. Like her shield's only a 170 to start. That's 50 lower than Janna, 50 lower than champions like Lulu. Remember that Rakan can burst shield, like both of his shields combined, or like, what was it, like 180 or something like that, plus a 1.6 ratio. It was even more than that. I think it was like 280. It was like 140 each shield. So he did, like, Rakan has better burst shielding. I guess if you're using her mantra on it, you can get to like a 400 shield. That's okay. Her main problem is she doesn't have a real ultimate. Her numbers are kind of low. Her CC is very lackluster. It requires you to stay in range of somebody for like 2 seconds, which is too late when an assassin's trying to dive you. She does give a lot of movement speed. So if that mantra had movement speed for 2.5 seconds to run your whole team in, you have the Goon Squad, you've got your Mundo, your Hecarim, all that kind of stuff. She could be really good in like a run 'em down type of comp. And she does apply good pressure. So she's good historically with things like Sivir, with things like Caitlyn that want to push under tower and just poke them in under tower. She's a really good tempo champion early on. The problem is there are other champs that also have really nice poke like that, like Yuumi, for example, or like Lulu, who can do a similar function. So, I mean, the big competition for her is Lulu. It's like Lulu can put 3 points in Q in the laning phase 2 and also push really well, but she has better scaling as the game goes on. So, I don't know. We'll see. She's okay. Fiddlesticks, I think, can be good. He does have good harassment and wave clear with his E. He has excellent a stun with his fear, which is a point click. Great against assassins or just some of those really high damage fighters that may not get a Quicksilver Sash. Although, once again, if they do get a Quicksilver Sash on the Jax or the Riven or whatever, that's going to ruin your day. He does have Silence, though, to help out. So, lots of CC. Really good engage. So, a lot of AP champs don't have super reliable engage, but he does if you can get good vision control. But kind of like Sona, he has no way to check bushes. So, it's extremely difficult to get that vision control, especially if you're behind. But he can be a really good champ in some circumstances. Thresh, if you're a god on Thresh, he can work. He can hit a lot of hooks. You know, make those plays. The problem is his base stats are really low and he has very limited scaling, kind of like Nautilus, but a lot less reliable than Nautilus. People have to actually click on your lantern. You have to actually hit your really thin hook that has a half a second wind up. You have to make very good decisions on him. His ultimate doesn't really, it's super close range, doesn't provide a ton of CC. It's a slow, but a lot of people will just like dash or blink over it. So I think he's just a worse version of Nautilus right now. I think Nautilus is just way better, which is why I have him in tier 3. But if you're a god on Thresh, you know, you can still make him work. And then Morgana is a really good counter pick against things like Nautilus, like Thresh, some of these hook champs. But once again, a lot of these top end champs are not going to be hook champs. You know, it's going to be your Zyra, it's going to be Sona, Nami, Yuumi, and she just gets outscaled by a lot of those enchanters, I think, out there. So pretty good in some circumstances, but really bad in others. So I think she's just a very situational counter pick. Although, once again, very strong against Nautilus, who's really popular right now. So it's good to have her in your back pocket just in case they pick something like that. And then I knocked down Braum, Galio, and Leona. I just think a lot of these kind of the peeling supports with the Galio and the Braum, they just don't scale. They're just having a lot of problems. They're being balanced around pro play, which makes them hard to use in solo queue. Leona's okay, but I just would prefer playing something like Nautilus as the hard engage. If Nautilus is banned, maybe you can pick Leona. Has a tough matchup into Thresh, has a tough matchup into a lot of champions on this list, but she can work. Tom Kench, he's really good in top lane right now in the right circumstances. I still think he's pretty weak in the bot lane, although once again, you can pick him instead of Morgana if you want to counterpick two things like Nautilus, like Thresh, like Leona. He can still serve that purpose. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Check out the stream. Starts around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard most nights. If you want to support the stream, then YouTube did add a join button next to the subscribe button. It's just $5 a month. It's just like a Twitch sub. I'll give you a $5 off any guide or coaching that you may want. You can come out and join us for Viewers Night every Sunday. It's been a lot of fun. We have been seeing some more familiar faces. I think it's building back up again, getting a pretty good group together for that. So if you want to join in that fun, or if you just want to support the channel, you like the good, honest, in-depth content, then, you know, drop those few dollars a month if you can. It's less than a quarter a day. It really does help out, but if you would like a coaching or a guide, I can do that as well. $25 for coaching or $30 for a guide. Discount if you're a member. I can do it over anything you want. I can coach losing games, winning games, any position. And then I can do a guide over anything you can imagine. Just let me know what you have in mind. thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com, and we can work it out. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.